This week, we found it out. Why are we stuck? And how do we stay unstuck? Tonight, our goal is to revisit what we discussed last week. Last week, we did this incredible thing, and we learned a summary of a Hasidic discourse. And the whole reason we learned it was really to apply it to ourselves, because this question had been raised to me, just feeling like stuck. And how do we get unstuck? And for some reason, when I looked at that discourse, I felt this discourse is really giving us a guide, maybe a different type of guide than you might expect, but I really felt it's a really strong guide. But we never applied it last week because we ran out of time. I want to apply it now. And then after that, we could, of course, take more time or less time on that. But I said, no, we got to start working on Passover. And we got it's Rosh Chodesh. It's 2 weeks. So I wanted to talk about Pesach. Also, not the technicalities, of course, not the cleaning or the cooking or the shopping, but some spiritual thoughts we have this week, we have next week, and the week after, if I'm correct, 2 weeks from tonight, we will be sitting at our Seder. So we don't have that much time to try to give ourselves some thoughts, some spiritual thoughts to rise above, transcend the physical, give it meaning, and help us walk our road to liberation. But let's first go back to what we discussed last week, because we never applied it. And I'm like, we cannot not apply it, even though in 2 weeks is Passover. So we were talking about this idea of the day after Yom Kippur, when the Jews achieve their atonement, when they're forgiven for the sin of the golden calf, then Vayakel Moshe gathers them, and we he's gathering them for the next, 39 years. No, this is a different type of gathering. This is to imply that this is the day after Yom Kippur. This was a very significant gathering. I don't want to say just, because it's not just to be taught by Moshe Rabbeinu Torah, but it's not only that would be happening for the next 39 years. This was actually to give them the tools to really clean up what had been damaged by the sin. And there was a few tools that Moshe gave them then, and we focused on the first one, on that first verse, talking about for 6 days, work should be done. Te'aseh. That was the Hebrew for it. Te'aseh melacha, which is in the passive, not like you're out there doing the work, but work should be done. And we connected this to a verse from Tehillim, a verse from Psalms. When the work of your hands you eat, wow, you are fortunate. And we said, okay, what's King David trying to tell us here? And the point is, it's the work of your hands. It's not the work of your head. It's not the work of your heart. It's not the investment of your inner self. It's your hands. You do what you have to do, because we live in a physical world, but just keep it like at arm's distance. Keep it something that your hands are engaged in and not your whole essence and being. Save that for God instead of for your career. Leave the best, leave the passion, leave the energy for God. That's why he gave it to you. And then we said, all right, so it's passive, but if it's so passive, that means I'm not really working hard because I'm not really focusing. It's not like me, get ahead, push. So why is it called Yagia? Yagia is effort. Yagia kapecha, the work, the effort of your hands. Hands, be detached. Let it just be hand deep. Yagia, what's the work then if I don't care so much? The work is, it's not what you want to do. What you really want to do, even if you don't realize it. What you really want to do is serve God. And when you're doing what you don't want to do, it's yagia, it's effort. So yagia, it's effort, because this isn't where I want to be. Kapecha, and do it therefore very superficially, just to do what you have to do. Save your real energy for God, your love for God, your passion for God, your service of God, your transcending self to be one with God. That worked in the physical plane, and then we said this is also true, actually, which is much more surprising, spiritually. Also, spiritually, we have to have this yagia kapecha. And we're like, well, how does this work spiritually? How is this spiritually? We understand, but how is it spiritually? And we said that spiritually, very often we fall into the trap. I definitely fall into this trap. I will definitely, true confessions, that we serve thinking what we're getting out of it. Because there's so much we're getting out of it. God's always giving, and he's always going to give us more than we give him. And he's the source of all blessings. And we know when you do this, you get that. When you do this, you get that. And it works. And we see it, and we see it, and we see it. And yet still, That's not why we're supposed to be serving. We're not even supposed to be serving because we know this is the best. This is the best space to be in. This is the best space to be in spiritually. And this is actually the best space to be in physically. Ultimately, that's not what we're supposed to be thinking either. Now, again, if we think those things, it's not horrible. It's actually fine. It's fine to be doing because you know what you're getting out of it, because we're getting so much and God tells us and we see it. It's fine to be serving because you know that's the best, it's the sweetest, it's the best life possible. That's fine. But even better is not being that person who's doing it because of what they're getting out of doing it, because this is God's will. That's it. And then you have, again, yagia and kapecha. You have yagia because you're not doing it with pleasure and delight and thinking how good this is for you and what a great space you're in. You're doing it because it's God's will. So it's not about you, it's about him. That's the yagia, that's the effort. And the kapecha, the doing it sort of like, if we will, without this real investment of self, is really because, again, we're very conscious it's not about me. It's about God. This is his will. I'm the vehicle that his will is being expressed in this world. And therefore, I don't take credit for what happens. And I know it's not me what happens. And I'm letting him work through me. So that's the kapecha. That's the sense of, it's just, if you will, a more passive, I'm retreating myself and I'm letting God flow through me experience. And we said when we do it that way, this is really rectifying the sin of the golden calf, and which goes back to the sin of the tree of knowledge. And we said because in those sins, there was a lot of passion, going back to the original primordial sin of the tree. There was a lot of feeling, there was a lot of desire, there was a lot of passion, there was a lot of want, there was a lot of self. And we said to rectify it, we have to do the opposite. It's not with passion, it's with God's space, giving him the space, letting it be his will, knowing it's him, knowing it's not me. And we compare this very interestingly to, we said that the generation that left Egypt, us, is reincarnation of the generation of the Tower of Babel, Babylonia, us. And there, in our first incarnation, we were enjoying building because we were building a tower to defy God and we really wanted it. So we did it with a lot of passion and a lot of self. And therefore, as a generation, we came back to build, but to build for Paro, to build for Pharaoh. So we were enslaved. There was no pleasure. There was not about us at all. And that rectified that. So similarly, serving God because it's about him, because it's about his will, because it's his space, rectifies those primordial sins that was about our passion and our space. And that's sort of a brief rendition of what we did last week. So the reason why I wanted to go into this very mind-shifting idea, which is really shifting how we're supposed to look at our physical life, our life is what we call our life, and how we're supposed to look at our service of God. And in both my life and maybe even more profoundly in my service of God, it's a very, like I said, it's a very big inner shift. And I wanted to discuss it because of the issue of being stuck. And I felt that so many people struggle with this issue of being stuck, feeling like they're in the ruts of life, or life is a rut, and they keep going through the motions without joy. Why? Why is that happening? Why is it that people get into this space? And I'm saying maybe it's not a familiar space for anyone here, which is great, but it is a familiar space for a lot of people. A lot of people go through this. And I think it's because when we do the nature of the world, the nature of our animal energy, and we prioritize the physical, we prioritize the physical because that's our basic animal, physical human nature. And that's how we were accultured. That's our training. That's what the world tells us. Even if from birth you were raised Orthodox, still, the world was giving you the message that what's important is physical, but I don't want to say never, but you have this extra burden. You're not exactly like everyone else because you've got this burden of a lot of commandments for God. But still, I mean, your real life is your physical life. Plus that, there's these extra burdens or responsibilities or commitments, depending on how you were raised, how it was expressed, but still your life is you. That's your life. And what happens then is we all buy into that lie. We all buy into that falsehood. And we think that in our physical life, we'll find our joy. I mean, that's what I am. That's what I've been told. That's what I feel. And that's what I've been told. And that's what I've picked up, not by word, but by lots and lots of examples of everyone in my world. And we don't. We won't, and we don't. Hard for us to accept sometimes because we are so trained by our animal soul, by our evil inclination, and by everything in the world around us. But the physical world is not the source of joy for the Jew. It's not really life for us. We think it is. We think the religious stuff is the extras we do because we're so good and holy. Or maybe we think the religious stuff is what we do to bring down the blessings in our life. Maybe we want to bring down the blessings for ourselves. Maybe we want to bring down the blessings for our family. But when we think of it like that, honestly, we are missing the point. We're not doing it because we're so good and holy. We're not doing it to bring down blessing. This is our real life. The real life of a Jew is serving God. Otherwise, it can be compared to a prince. That's what every one of us is, a prince, a princess, royalty, nobility, that got stuck in a stable and was told that that's life. But it's not. It's not our life. There's a incident that happened with the first Rebbe of Chabad, who we refer to as the Alter Rebbe, and a chassid of his, a follower of his, whose name was Rabbi Kusil Leffler. And at one point, the Alter Rebbe wanted to bless Rabbi Kusil with life, with long life. I mean, there's no bigger blessing than life, right? And Rabbi Kusil said, no, I don't want it unless it's godly life. Otherwise, no thanks. Don't give me a life that I have eyes and I don't see, and I have ears and I don't hear. If I don't hear and see godliness, I'm not interested. This sounds crazy. The Alter Rebbe, who obviously had the ability to give this, is offering him the best gift anyone could want. You can't buy it for any money in the world. And he says, no, like we could say someone gives you a gift, you say, it's the wrong color, it's the wrong material. I don't want it. Like, why are we being so picky? A gift is a gift. Smile and say thank you. What was this person's problem that he didn't smile and say thank you? Because what he was saying, what Rabbi Kusil Leffler was saying is, if it's not Jewish life, it's not life. It's the prince in the stable. No thanks. If I'm a prince living in a stable is not a gift. And that's true for all of us. When we say Moida Ani in the morning, right? Our first prayer to God. Someone asked me today, actually. Someone who's knows almost nothing about her heritage, though many spiritualities not her heritage. And she's moving in this direction. She really is, very sincerely, and she wanted to pray. She said, what should I pray? I said, I have an 8-word prayer for you. And explained to her the Moda Ani, most foundational prayer. What do we say? Many levels, but I just want to pull out this one concept. Moda Ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayim. Thank you, God. Shechachasarta bi nishmasi. That you restore to me my soul. That you gave me back my life. I'm thanking you, God, for giving me Jewish life. Nishmasi, my soul, my life as a Jew. That is worthy of thanking God. So we don't necessarily feel this. Again, our animal soul is giving us a different message. Our evil inclination is giving us a different message. The world is giving us a different message. Every step of the way we've been given a different message. But the fact that we don't feel it doesn't remove our inner wiring. So we could still feel stuck and unhappy without that connection to God. Just we don't understand why we're feeling that way. And that's a very, 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 very significant piece of like why someone or so many someones, so many people feel so stuck, and why what we really need to understand to get unstuck. And again, when we're thinking this is supposed to lead life. This is supposed to be, woo, I'm so happy. And I'm not happy at all. This is a very deep reason why. And that was the first half of the discourse. When in your physical life, don't invest self. Don't put in your whole being. Don't put in your whole self and feel here is your life. Your real life, the real life is serving God. And again, if you believe it or not, honestly, you can't escape who you are, what you are. That's how we work. Amazing story. You can actually Google this. It's a gem video. You can find it on YouTube. Told by the man it happened to, and I'll say it briefly because I really do want to talk about Passover tonight. But I feel this is such an important topic. And this was in the 60s. Elliot Lasky, had actually been raised Orthodox, Holocaust survivor parents, and like a lot of the 60s generation, he left it all. He literally was like working for the Rolling Stones. He was like as far off as one could be in that drug and everything else culture. A lot of promiscuity, lots of drugs, lots of craziness, lots of music, and very severely depressed because that's not what makes a Jew feel good. Anyway, he was so desperate that he reached out to the Chabad rabbi he knew, Shliach, an emissary of the Rebbe in the university he had been in Buffalo before he took a hiatus to go travel with Rolling Stones. And he asked him for help. He poured out his heart. And the rabbi said, the only one I know that can help you is Lubavitcher Rebbe. And if you want, if you go, you're in Manhattan now, go to Brooklyn, get off the subway at this stop, I'll send my brother-in-law to meet you and come at this time. And that's when the Lubavitcher Rebbe should be walking into his synagogue called 770 for the afternoon prayer for Mincha and start talking to him and see what happens. And that's exactly what he did. He said it was a freezing cold day in January and he got off on the subway in Brooklyn, never been there before, I don't think, and was met by the brother-in-law who positioned him exactly where to wait for when the Lubavitcher Rebbe will walk in for Mincha. He said it was a freezing cold day. And he sees this old limousine come up and a very distinguished rabbi got out and then the brother-in-law like disappeared and he's just standing there alone and he goes up to the Rebbe and he starts. And I'm just going to say very briefly, to me, it's very powerful. I'm saying it for the second half of the story, but I'll start with the first. Basically, again, I'm skipping a lot of the language, but he said to the Rebbe, he shared with him two things that were really bothering him very existentially. He said, Lubavitcher Rebbe, where is God? And the Rebbe said, where? And he said, I know, but where? And the Rebbe said, pointing in a tree, in a stone, everywhere. He said, I know, but where? And the Rebbe said, inside of you. If this is what you're asking, where is God? God is inside of you. And that really moved him tremendously. It's not out there, big, far, powerful, scary. God's inside of each one of us. And then the second half, which is why I bring this in, because I think it relates to what we're talking about. He said, Lubavitcher Rebbe, what's the difference? What's the difference between an Indian, a black man, a Jew? We're all the same. We can all say the Shema prayer. We can all believe in God. We can all serve God. What's the difference? And the Rebbe said, and again, if you're interested, it's much more powerful from him than from me. You can go on YouTube, gem video, Elliot Lasky, something like that. You will find it. The Rebbe said, the ultimate of a black man, the ultimate of an Indian, is to serve God as he is as an Indian. The ultimate of a black man is to serve God as he is as a black man. That's the ultimate a human being can aspire to be the best human he could be. Like the animal should be the best animal, and the stone should be the best stone, and the human should be the best human. And the ultimate of the Jew is to be one with God through Torah and mitzvahs. The ultimate of the Jew is not to be the best person he could be. Then we'd be like the rest of the 8 billion of mankind. The rest of the world, everything is created to ultimately be its best, except the Jew. The Jew is created to transcend himself, to transcend being human, to become fused with God. That's what we can be. And that's, if we know it or not, our aspiration. That's what we want. That's what we crave. That's what we're here for. And that's why anything else is not going to cut it. It's not going to feel like it's supposed to feel. It's not going to make us feel like it's supposed to make us feel. So when the person believes inside himself and was trained to believe that real happiness is by acquiring this and achieving this and having more of this, and you do all of that and you just feel stuck in the rut of life, it's because that does work for most of creation, including about 8 billion people. But it doesn't work for the Jew. It's not going to work, and you're going to feel stuck. It's not going to work because that's not you. That's not what you were created for. Then we went a step further. We said, not only that, but when you live this way, again, first do the physical passively. It's not your main focus. And with effort, it's not where you want to be. Like, I'm sure we all have this, sometimes we have this thought, like spending hours on the phone with, like, I don't know, the IRS or some company and trying to explain for the 15th time why they're mischarging you or whatever. I'm sure we've all been there way too many times. And you think, okay, I think this very often, okay, God, I could be serving you. I could be doing lots of good stuff now. And instead, I'm spending a few hours on this. All right, this is what you want. It is your world. When you think like that and you live like that all the time, not just when you're stuck on the phone with these annoying situations, then you're not stuck. Because you're not stuck in the physical that's supposed to bring you joy. It's not bringing you joy. And you know it's not you. It's not the real you. And the real you honestly doesn't want it. And then if you think that's the real you and you think that's supposed to bring you joy and it doesn't bring you joy and you're not happy and you can't even figure out why. And when we live this way saying this is what we have to do, but this is not the real me, this is not the real I, we are literally rectifying the primordial sin of the tree of knowledge. The original filth that entered the world is being removed. This is the road to redemption. And then we said, take it to an even higher level. If you relook at your whole spiritual service, because most of the time, for most of us, myself very much included, our spiritual service could be incredibly self-centered. These are things that make me feel good. These are things that make me feel fulfilled. I do them for my good. I do them to bring good to my life. I bring them to be blessings to my life. All that's true. This is the best stuff in the world. This does make me feel good. This does bring blessings to my life. None of this is bad. But if you think those thoughts, you can also end up feeling stuck. Because you're stuck in the box you are sketching. You're stuck in the box and you can't transcend that box. You can't get past self. You can't get past that little box. But when I serve putting myself on the side, when I serve with yagia, with effort, with retreating myself to give God all of this space, when it's not about this brings me all the blessings in the world, which it does. It's not about I feel my best when I'm doing this, which I do. It's about this is God's will. I'm doing this because he wants it. I'm just doing this because he wants it. Then I'm escaping myself. I'm transcending myself. I'm getting past my box. I'm getting past my limits. Now, again, this is tricky. This is subtle. If you act this way to get past your box, it still won't work. And then you could still feel stuck. Once the motivation goes back to yourself, even the holiest, highest level of self, it's still self, it's still a box, and we could still be stuck. So not that you're doing it for this reason, but when you serve this way, just because this is what God wants, not because of any level of me, my wants, my needs, my spiritual wants, my spiritual needs. When it's not about you, then you don't get stuck. And as long as it's about you, there's always getting stuck in self, and that does not feel very good. And that can be very, very, very harmful on so many levels. So I know I went through that.
I have a quick question. Is that always our Yetzer Hara that's pushing us to, I guess, be more involved in other things so we don't, I guess, spend the time learning?
The Yetzer Hara in general doesn't want us to serve because that's what we're here for, and that's what's going to be the purpose of our existence, and that's what's going to bring redemption. And that's, I mean, for all the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination is actually an angel. It is literally an angel with a mission, and its mission is that I should not serve. And what, like the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination could just like be silly and do it like piece by piece. Okay, now I'm going to get you not to want to keep Shabbos properly. Now I'm going to get you to want to light the candles way too late. Now I'm going to get you to eat that chocolate bar when but that's so silly. It's much smarter to just remove the whole underpinnings of my relationship with God, and then I'm not going to really do anything right. So when the evil inclination convinces me, aided and embedded by the world around us, that what you want is more this and that. And if you take a trip there and you buy this and you have that and you control this, you're going to be happy. This is why you live. This is what you want life for. Look what everyone else has. You will have that and more. They'll all be looking at you. You will be. What is that? That's got nothing to do with me. That's nothing to do with any Jew. Nothing to do with any Jew. But we're convinced. And what happens is originally, I mean, if we really want to go into the ploys of the evil inclination, when we first start messing up, literally, this is what it says Kabbalistically, we are rewarded by the evil because the evil is hooking us in. The best metaphor I could think of, and it just came to my mind now, would always come to my mind, is a drug dealer. Drug dealers can be so nice. They'll give you free samples. Why? Because once you're addicted, they know they're going to get every penny you have, can steal, can get your hands on. And that's evil. That's how evil works. So the first few times you do something wrong, evil literally, from its evil spiritual energy, pays you back. And you have
That's very true.
You have this sense.
I have a friend who, was religious and decided to, I guess, go the other way. And she was saying how, like, she just feels like when she when she was religious, like nothing went well for her. And now that she's not religious, she's like, things are just better. She's just happier. Her job is better. I think that's exactly what you're saying.
But
like the evil's just feeding her.
No. But it doesn't last because evil is ultimately self-centered. Evil doesn't give, which is so silly. Like, why not? But it doesn't. So your friend, when she started off, until she got hooked, until she got addicted, until she got convinced, until she felt she so trashed herself it didn't make a difference anymore, she got paid back. Literally paid back. Literally things worked out.
Yeah, it did.
But once she's hooked, the whole thing dries up. Doesn't give you anything anymore because it's all false. It's not real. The good you're feeling isn't an intrinsic good. It's not really you. It's just like that high from the drug. It's not you at all. So she gets it in the beginning to hook her, to addict her, to make her feel this is me. This is my life. This is what I do. Once she's hooked, the evil doesn't give her anything anymore. It's like, why not? Because it's evil. Because it doesn't give. Evil does not give. Godly gives, evil does not give.
But at what point? Like, people go their whole life like that.
No. If she's been doing this for a while, it's not giving her anything anymore. And if you spoke to her, honestly, she's miserable. And she probably knows she's miserable. But what she will tell you is, this is what she'll tell you. I can guarantee you. I don't know her name, but I can guarantee you this is what she's going to tell you. I wasn't happy when I was religious also. Yeah, I'm happy now. Okay, I'll tell you it. I'm unhappy. Things aren't going good for me. But I was unhappy when I was religious. And at least now I can do what I want. At least now I have my freedom. At least now I'm not under being ruled by a bunch of rules that I don't want to. It's like a box I don't fit into anymore. I don't feel that's me anymore.
Yeah, 100%. You're on target.
She's not happy. She's not happy. I can guarantee you she's not happy. She can't be happy. She's a Jew. Dina?
I see this with the few people I know that have unfortunately stopped being religious. And it's so true what you're saying about like the sample, because it always starts off with like little things like they're okay, they're leaving the TV on Shabbos now. It's not so bad anyway. Technically, it's fine, whatever. And then it's like they're friends with people who don't cover their hair. So like they're not really going to cover their hair anymore. And it's these little pieces and they always need more because it doesn't give them what they want. And it's like each little piece. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm like, wait, what happened? You know, it's like the little piece, one little tiny mitzvah at a time that they give up to try to like get that high.
You're so right. That's such an incredibly profound analysis of exactly what happens. You are so right. They want something, they think they're going to get it, and they almost get a little taste, and then it doesn't work anymore. And they're like, oh, I didn't get enough. But if I was doing that, then I'd be happy. Then life would be good. So let me try that. Yeah, it works. No, it stopped working. Okay, because I don't have enough. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe said a very simple phrase, but so real. He said, nobody's walking the path of the king, the highway of the king, and suddenly you blink and you're in a deep, dark forest. You took a little step off and another little step and another little step, and a few thousand steps later, you are so deep. You're in such a dark, scary place. And that's exactly what happens. I mean, obviously not to everyone. Obviously, some people take these massive leaps, but most of us follow exactly Dina's road. I'm not happy. This isn't making me feel good. Oh, this makes me feel good. Oh, it doesn't make you feel more good. So then evil gets you to do the worst thing. And again, it's going to bribe you. It's going to feel really good, maybe the first 3 times. And then it dries up. It doesn't feel good anymore. You got to do that. Oh, if you did that, then you'd be living. Then it would be good. Then life would be meaningful. Then everyone would love you. Then you'd be accepted. Then you'd be part of the group. All right, I'll try that. I mean, if I'm already doing this and this, what's that already? Just one more step. And the same pattern continues and continues and continues and continues. But every Jew in the end knows this is not it. Every single one of us. Every one of us, because inside this can never, ever make us feel why we're in this world. It doesn't, because it's not. Dina?
So I like it. It's really true, like the analogy of like that drug dealer who's giving you that free samples, and then it becomes this like slippery slope of like one thing leads to another, and then before you know it, you're kind of too far in to turn back. And I'm wondering, like, for those people, is there a way to, like, if you're seeing that slow progression to kind of like bring that, is there any hope for that? Like to get in there before they can, you know, become fully too immersed in a not religious lifestyle?
Yeah, you get them to do mitzvahs. Every mitzvah helps. Every single mitzvah helps. Every mitzvah is like another lifeline, like another anchor, like another inner call of, I'm a Jew. I'm not like the rest of the world, even though I try to convince myself I am. And it's true, the rest of the world can find happiness in exactly the same thing the Jew is doing to find happiness, but they will and you won't. They do and you don't. And that's the idea of a mitzvah. We can never underestimate the value of a mitzvah and the value of the soul of a Jew. And when you put those two together, so it's a mitzvah and another mitzvah and another mitzvah and another mitzvah, and each mitzvah just pulls out the soul a bit more, a bit more, a bit more, and that's how you save them. Any other thoughts on this? Again, for yourself, for those you love, but very honestly, each one of us for ourselves. We don't need as the dramatic examples as Shira and Dina were giving for ourselves, because we can also find ourselves feeling stuck and the rut, and life is just a bunch of emotions you keep going through. And it's really good just to stop and say, whoa, that's not how I'm supposed to live. I'm supposed to be excited and be full of joy. And then am I on, is it level 1 or level 2? Is it feeling the physical is my life? And that's the source of my joy and pleasure, and it's not, and that's why I'm not very happy. Or no, I'm spiritual, but being stuck in spirituality that's me-centered and trying to transcend that as well. Putting self on the side there as well. And that's not going to mean everything you do for God. Obviously, there's certain things that are so obvious how every time we do it, we just feel so good and we just feel so connected and we just where we just see the blessings in our life. So don't pick those areas. Pick an area that doesn't make you feel so good when you do it, and you don't necessarily connect any blessings to doing it, and focus on that area. And in that area, you know, I'm not doing it because it makes me feel good. It doesn't. It should, but it doesn't. I'm not doing it for the blessings. I know it gives blessings, but I just don't connect them. Why am I doing this? Because God, this is what you want. This is purely you. It's not about me. It's about you. And that's, you know, the most beautiful way to really get past self. And even a very good self can make us feel stuck in self. And that was the first thing that I wanted to do. And I did not mean it to take the whole time. And even though we don't have that much time left, but I think I'm going to very quickly give over at least something of Passover, because next week's our next class and our last class, because as I said, 2 weeks from tonight, we have a Seder. Try, because again, this is like, how do we do it in a short time? But I want to give over something that I find very powerful. I might have shared this before, because it's something that I really think has so much significance in terms of educating ourselves and in terms of educating our children. For some of us, it might become our grandchildren. For many of us, it's the children we have or the children we will have. And of course, every one of us is a child. Passover is for all of us. We all have that inner child, and we all have to have redemption. It's not celebrating when we were redeemed. It's celebrating our current exodus. We are leaving Egypt. We are living our limitations. Egypt is Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim, we are told Kabbalistically, is the etymology Meitzarim, limitations. So I wanted to share some spiritual concepts, and I will only share one now to help us leave whatever's our bondage and really here get into the concept of what do we need to absorb, and how do we need to look at ourselves, and how do we need to have our children look at themselves? Because the Seder is all about children. You could say, well, great, there's nobody too young at my Seder. But again, we're all the children. It's about us as that child, as that recipient, as a person opening up and being educated and being liberated and becoming God's people. And within the Seder, of course, the longest of the 15 steps is Magid, is when we tell the story. And even if you do it really quickly, it's definitely the longest of the 15 steps. And within Magid, and it's all supposed to be child-centered, the most child-centered part, of course, for every single one of our Seders, is the 4 questions. And I have vivid memories of my children that are in their 30s when they were saying those 4 questions as young children. And again, it's for every single child. And in Chabad, our custom is after the children say it, we all adults say it as well, quietly, because we're all the child. We're all asking God these questions. So in the Chabad version, and I know this is also, as Maimonides actually writes the version, I don't know if every other way of reciting the 4 questions is written in this order, but this is actually the ancient order. And I'm saying this is Maimonides' order as well, is we first ask why we dip. Then we ask why we eat this matzah, where's the bread? Then we ask, why do we eat this bitter vegetables, where's the good stuff? And then we ask, why do we lean? And this order is very, very important. So even if your order is different, I wanted to give this over because I felt this was such a critical message for ourselves and for the education and messages we want to give to our children and grandchildren, that I wanted to share it anyway, even if it's not going to work and you can't get this over because the order is different. It's really for you to absorb. It's a very, very central concept in how does one become a Jew? So when you look at that order, it seems very strange. Dip, and then matzah, and then maror, and then lean. It's not the order of importance. The most important thing there is the matzah. That's biblical. And then the bitter herbs, the maror, that's rabbinic. And then the leaning. Leaning is part of the commandment to eat the matzah properly. And the dipping, The dipping's a custom. It's only, as we say, a minhag, a custom. So that order of priority doesn't seem to make sense. Maybe it's the order of how the kid sees it. No, because the first thing the kid sees is actually leaning, which we say last. Because when the father makes the kiddush and drinks the wine, he and all the men have to lean. So the first thing the child's seeing that's strange and different is leaning. So if it's about what he sees, the first thing would be leaning. Seemingly, if it's about significance, the first thing would be matzah. And we start with the dipping. So nothing's random, but this seems so random. Why is this the order? And I'm saying this really fast because I know it's late, but I think it's, again, something I want you to really think about, not just in terms of Passover, but in terms of your approach, the messages you want to give your children, God willing, your grandchildren, and yourself. It's teaching a very powerful lesson. The lesson being, don't deprioritize those customs. Some people feel, and you might have felt this, or you might have been told this, you might have been taught this explicitly or implicitly. Well, what God really wants, what's biblical, you got to do, and rabbinic, you should try to do, and a custom. I mean, if it's easy, why not? But otherwise, it's only a custom. And or some people feel, erroneously, when you're trying to give a child Judaism, stick to the most important, the basics, the skeleton of Judaism. You don't want to overload him. You don't want to burden him. You don't want him to feel squashed and suffocated and restricted. The more you give him, the more he'll feel that way. So use your common sense. Focus on what's important, and the other stuff, drop. This order, putting dipping first, is saying this is wrong. This is not the way we educate our children. This is not the way we educate ourselves. The first thing a child notices, first thing we notice, what gives the color and flavor of Judaism are those customs. What are the customs in Judaism? Think of anything colorful and flavorful. It's a custom. Hakafas on Sukkot, Hakafas Hoshana Rabbah, Simchas Torah, beating the Aravos on Hoshana Rabbah, eating dairy on Shavuos, eating fruits on the 15th of Shvat, Tashlech on Rosh Hashanah, Kaparos before Yom Kippur, wearing white on Yom Kippur, not learning on the eve of the 25th of December how we light the Hanukkah menorah. All of these are customs, and we have so many customs, how we do the commandments, how we wrap the tefillin, how we put the species of the sukkahs together, how we tie our tzitzis. If you're going to mikveh, how many times you go down, how you raise the Torah by Hagbah, and again, and again, and again, and again. All of those are customs, minhagim. If you educate a child, if you educate yourself, without the customs, what you basically are doing is like trying to neutralize, and this is the key point, and this is what I felt was so powerful to understand in this concept. I want to make Judaism be something that I look and I dress and I talk and I live similar to the rest of the world. I keep Torah mitzvahs. I'm doing the main things. I'm doing what I have to do. But I don't feel different because I don't look so different. I don't dress so different. I don't seem so different. And when someone's Judaism is like that, it's flat. It's cold. It's without kedusha. It's without godliness. It's without holiness. And when you're serving God without godliness, you're going to probably drop that as well. It's not just that the customs are Torah and are obligatory, as it says, Minhag Yisrael Torah. A custom, the Jewish people, is Torah. We do have to do it. And also, we're not supposed to weigh and evaluate, this is important, this I can drop, this I could be lenient, this is more significant. We're never supposed to look at anything in Judaism as if we are the weighers and measurers of what we're supposed to be doing for God. But it's deeper, and the lesson here is very, very profound. And unfortunately, again, even being raised Orthodox, you might not have been given this message, and you might not have given this message to your children. A foundation, I might say the foundation of Judaism is to know we are different. We are Jews. We are not like the rest of the world, but we have a different culture. We have a different religion. We have a different ethnicity. You know, that's very cool nowadays. No, that's not Judaism. We are different. And we sometimes get a lot of this feeling from the customs, from the minhagim. It sort of like throws it in your face. It like impacts you on the level of emotion, a feeling of we're different because we were chosen. We were chosen. We are not like the rest of the world. We are different. And this is a very, very, very Pesach-oriented concept. Because then we got out of Egypt, and now we're getting out of this current exile. We want redemption now. And this is a very foundational idea to get us out. And I said that very quickly. And I'm sure people are very busy, but I really would love you to think about this, or maybe even someone can just briefly share of having the sense. Do you have the sense that you're different than the rest of the world because you're Jewish? Because sometimes people don't, even though they are religious, but they somehow convince themselves and manage to be religious and just like everyone else. And this is really critical, this sense of, I'm not like everyone else. I'm really different because I'm a Jew. And that's really, really foundational for your own awareness. The goal is not to fool the world and look like the world and be like the world. The goal is to know, to be proud, to feel wonderful that we're different, and to give this to our children. That our children should be raised with a sense of, we're not like everyone else. We don't want to be like everyone else. We're blessed. We're different. We're Jews. And that feeling the customs give us. Aliza.
So I think that it really jumps out at me when I look at, it can be all the gemachs in the back of any Jewish newspaper. It can also be the organizations that we have. I just a few weeks ago, because one of our cousins needs a kidney, as Ras Hashem, Yona ben Miriam will have a refuah shlema along with all who need. So I right away told his wife, my cousin, about renewal. And so she said, what? And I said, and this friend of mine donated a kidney, and this person donated a kidney. She said, they just did? Did they know someone who needed? And I said, no, they knew it was needed. And then when I asked, and what are you doing with the kids? Because you need to deal with the fact that you have illness in the house. This is a big deal. So then I gave her the contact information for High Lifeline to help them in dealing with the kids. And here I am explaining High Lifeline, and that, yes, this is what they're there for, but they also are the experts in helping children deal with any family member with illness. And here I am explaining this, explaining that. Now, they're Jewish. They're not yet from. And I'm saying yet. They come from Yichus. They, Bezras Hashem, they'll get there. But when she said, wow, these are such gorgeous organizations. And I said, Mi ka'amcha Yisrael. Because to me, it was just that basic. And when I told her of some other organizations that have helped my husband and me in the Tekufa that we are in, I again said, Mi ka'amcha Yisrael. You know, like there's a difference. It's not just, oh, here's a person, I don't know them, so I'm removed. No, we have these organizations where you call, and we all, I met someone, we were at the IHL earlier today, my husband and me, before Rosh Chodesh, so that we could daven. And here I am in front of the cover of the Rebbitzin, Chayim Mushka, Aleh Shalom, and, you know, near everybody else, but that was directly where I was at that moment. And there's another girl who's there, and she asked me a question, and I did my best to answer. And then I looked at her and said, what are you davening for? Because I saw she really needed chizuk. I said, tell me so I can daven for you. And she looked at me and said, "You would? Of course." And then she wanted to know, well, what can I daven for you? And again, it's like, there's no such thing as a stranger, because a Jew is a Jew is a Jew, and we are connected. And to me, that's part of the difference. It's that oneness, as you were talking about earlier, of the oneness that we strive for with Hashem. It's also that oneness of achdus with each other.
You are so right, and that is such a huge point and such a huge way of saying, yes, we're different. Baruch Hashem. Dina?
I agree with Eliza. It's so inspiring that like the need is filled before it comes up. And something that I've been noticing recently, and it's kind of like weird also, it's a good weird feeling, is I live in Brooklyn, and I usually like go in Ubers or with drivers to wherever I'm going. And I go to Crown Heights every day for work. And it's so funny because the drivers, and I noticed this specifically on Purim, is like the drivers all know our holiday schedule, our like the nail salon people know my holiday schedule, but like the drivers especially, like I'll get in the car and they'll put on Shweki or like Jewish music. And they know we're different, like when they come in. And it's so interesting. And my friends have had similar experiences. And like on Purim, there's so much traffic, it's crazy. And I think was in like 3 or 4 Ubers, and each one had another story of how they were just like, they knew that it would be a 24-hour shift or 12-hour shift, and then back at it again on Purim. They were pulling like a full day because so many people needed rides. And it was like everyone like showed up because like, and it made me feel so different and so special that like the world showed up for us like when we were celebrating. And it felt like very Mashiach energy, and very like, it made me feel so different in that way.
And it's true. It's beautiful when the world shows up for us, because it also shows us like you're saying, we're different, and the world respects it. And the world does. Oh, I've always seen that. When we are proud that we're different, when we're proud that we're Jewish, when we're proud that we have lots of laws and lots of restrictions, though you can also serve God in your way, of course, the world is like, wow. The world generally is very respectful. Whoa, it's